Welcome back to week 4 of EDIS5440. In this half of the video, we're going to give a brief discussion of the project that you're going to be working on this week. So this week you're going to be making an interactive whiteboard project. You have the option of choosing the company that you prefer. However, Smartboard tends to predominate many of the schools here. The other company that you may choose to use is Promethean and their active software. That being said, whichever platform you choose to use, the directions are fairly similar. What you want to do is pick a short instructional activity, something that might be a brainstorm for a project for your tip idea, or it could be just an independent project if you want to get some practice using the Smartboard. But the main key word there is interactive. One of the main benefits or affordances of interactive whiteboard technology is the fact that you can manipulate the things on the screen or have students do that so that students are more likely to hopefully stay engaged in the project. Next week you're going to do a 5-minute demonstration. You may not get through your entire activity, but certainly at least a few minutes of it you want to demonstrate. Those of us in the class are actually going to be your students or participants, so get ready to put on your teacher hat and get ready to demonstrate some of the things that you know how to do. So I'd strongly recommend during the next week finding time to access a Smartboard here on grounds. That way you can practice using some of the tools if you're not as familiar with the hardware in particular. Using the pens, knowing what it feels like to touch the screen, etc. There is something definitely to be said for that tactile experience so that you're comfortable when you present to the class. It's likely that we'll hold class in a different location next week that will be announced as soon as we get a room reserved. So that being said, what you're going to do is create a short demonstration, and you're going to upload it to your website when you finished, of course, and bring a copy on a thumb drive just in case. Sometimes because the files are fairly large, it can take a while to download depending on the computer that we're on. But we're going to talk a little bit about the class outline and directions. As usual, they are linked in the class website. So basically what you need to do, and these are the minimum requirements. If you choose to go above and beyond, you're more than welcome to. I tend to find that Smartboard projects can be pretty engaging. And as with many other technology pieces, one of the benefits is that once you've spent the time to create a quality presentation, you're able to reuse it for other classes or in other years fairly easily. Make small improvements but not have to start over from scratch. So some of the minimum requirements, as with many other presentation softwares, typically smart projects are on pages, and so you want to have at least 5 pages or interactive screens as part of your presentation. You want to have at least one that is student-centered, where the students in your class at whatever grade or age you've specified will be able to interact with the whiteboard itself. I found that students really enjoy getting the opportunity to interact with the technology and with each other there. You want to have at least one interactive element from the Gallery Essentials collection. So that collection is, it provides a number of different interactive structures that you can then add components to. And you want to have at least one link to an outside website or a source, whether that's a video or a resource for students to access that you might discuss with them or show them around. So again, you want to have at least those elements in your project. And then the other thing that we just want to talk about is some of the things that you're going to be looking toward. So next Monday you're going to share your Smartboard projects, and that's basically going to be the opportunity for us to practice hands-on some of these resources. The other thing is that you want to be getting in touch with your mentor, because your next project is to interview them to find out what kind of technology they have access to, what kind of technology they are interested in learning more about, and hopefully connecting your technological needs and experience with a project with your mentor. And after that, we're going to begin working on your contract proposal and lessons. While those are still a few weeks away, what I want for you to do is at least start considering those, so that when you meet with your mentor teacher in the next 2 weeks, you're able to have an idea of the kind of work that you will be doing with them. So A project website or lesson plan, one thing that you'll see is there's a template that's fairly straightforward. I'm not particularly picky about a given structure, but for this particular project, so that it is well prepared for you, I'd prefer that you use this basic template. And we're going to look at one example because I think often examples are a little easier to judge the quality and what it will look like when it's complete in your case. So as you take a look at this completed example, I want for you to get some of the basic elements in your head so that you can think about what you're going to be working toward in your final project. So first of all, you'll see a title, and you need to choose the name of the lesson. In this case, it's Introduction to Blogging, and obviously you want to add your first and last name. So some of the main components include identifying the class that you want to work with. What age, grade, or number of students is this? A whole class activity or a small group activity? The next thing that you want to look at are both the Virginia SOLs, which relate to the content in the TPAC piece, as well as you want to look at the National Educational Technology Standard, or the NETS standards. So that's when we think about the TPAC model, the technology piece is going to look at those NETS standards. The content knowledge is going to be looking at the Virginia SOLs, and the pedagogy is part of what we're going to look at through the rest of this lesson plan. So once you've identified some of the key pieces, and you don't need to necessarily identify every single SOL, but the one or two main ones from the NETS and from the Virginia SOLs you do want to include. You'll have your objectives, which are the main ideas that you want for your students to understand as they complete the lesson, any materials that you need to have ready before you teach, and the procedures. I typically recommend adding them in a numbered format so that you understand the sequence of the activity. Along the way, the other thing that you want to include is how you would assess or evaluate student progress. So a few things to point out. In terms of the detail involved in most of these lesson plans, you want for them to be detailed enough that if, for example, you are going to have a substitute or somebody else teach this lesson, they would understand what are the main things that they would need to do and ask and consider when they were teaching this lesson. In terms of evaluation and assessment, you don't necessarily need to create documents such as quizzes, etc. for every single one of the activities, but surely you do want to think about how you would judge whether students understood what was happening or not. And that may be in a number of forms. That may be in a summative type of assessment where you are looking at student progress at the very end of an activity and measuring growth, or it may be in the terms of a formative project or resource that's an ongoing type of assessment to understand how students are going. So as I said, we're not necessarily to the point where we're going to get to lesson plans quite yet for our unit, but this is just an example of some of the things I would like for you to work toward in the coming weeks as you begin thinking about your upcoming project. So to recap, for next week you need to have your Smartboard project with both the lesson activity sheet as well as the actual product uploaded to your website and on a thumb drive to present on Monday. You also want to start getting in touch with your mentor so that you can make plans to think about the kinds of lessons for the unit that you would like to develop by the end of the semester. Have a great week.